Today I wanted to talk about change because a lot of people are afraid of change and they don't even know it yet. So let me give you an example of that. So about 9 years ago, I believe it was, I had just gotten back from, no, it's about 10 years now. It was back in 2005, in October. I had just gotten back from overseas, and I was 19 years old, and I had a daughter that had just been born. I believe it was maybe 2 or 3 days before I had gotten back from overseas. So I had to find a job, and so I was basically just applying everywhere that was hiring. And let me back up a little bit. I had a job when I had just got back, but I was moving to San Antonio because I'm originally from Seguin, and after I came back from overseas, I wanted to move to San Antonio. So while I was in high school, because keep in mind this was around the time I was 18, 19 years old, I was working at McDonald's in Seguin. I was a manager there. So when I came back, I needed to find a job in San Antonio because I wanted to move there, because that's where my daughter was going to be at, and that's where we were going to stay at in San Antonio. Plus, the military base was right here in San Antonio as well. So I was going to move to San Antonio. Well, I was applying everywhere because I needed to find a job. Well, I ended up getting an offer from KBB to work for them, but overseas. Now, I didn't want to do that because, my daughter had just been born a few days before. Even though they were going to allow me some time off, I still didn't want to do it. And, the job was going to be a great paying job. It was going to be over $100,000 a year job. But I didn't want to do it mainly because I was afraid. I didn't know, exactly what was going to happen, where I was going to be at. I was basically afraid of change. So I passed up on that over $100,000 job, and I settled for a job at a security place in San Antonio, to where they did security at the Arsenal downtown, which is the headquarters of HEB, as well as whenever they have those premieres for new movies that come out, the security company that I worked for ran security for those events. So long story short, I ended up passing up $100,000 plus dollar a year job for I believe it was like a $40,000 a year job. And what it came down to was I was afraid of change. I was afraid of the unknown. Now, looking back at that, I wish I would have done that then, because, it took me 6 or 7 years after that to start making the money that I would have been making at that job at the KBB. So I pretty much, I could be a lot further ahead in life than what I am now, but, I didn't take that job. I didn't take that risk just because I was unsure about it. I was 19 years old, and, I really didn't know any better. So, if you're afraid of change, it's mainly because you've been doing the same thing so long. You've been, waking up at the same time, going to the same job. People get comfortable with where they're at. And once you get comfortable with where you're at, you tend to not want to do anything else. And, what I wanted to say to you about that is, even though you might be comfortable with where you're at, I'm sure that there's been times where, you wish that, you could have more freedom, or, you could spend more time with your family. And that you need to change you need to change something in your life in order to do that. And you're not doing that because you're comfortable with where you're at and you're afraid of change. You see, when you get comfortable with where you're at and when you fear change, you stop yourself from reaching the goals that you may want to reach. You stop, you prevent yourself from getting that freedom that you want, from spending the time with your family that you want, because you think, well, if I quit this job and do this, I could make less than what I'm making now. Or, if I change this, this, and this, I may get fired from my job because I'm asking for more time off. You see, if you're given the opportunity to change something in your life that is going to better you, go ahead and do it. Because, nothing is worse than regretting doing something that you could have done a few years back. Or, who knows where I could have been if I would have taken that job. I wouldn't have had to struggle for 4 or 5 years at some job, living paycheck to paycheck. I would have been working for 6 months, off 6 months. Of course, that could have changed, because of the stuff that's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff like that. But, I don't know. So what I've changed about myself since then, and this is just recently that I've changed doing this. But anytime I'm presented with an opportunity that's gonna better my family or better my relationship or better anything in my life, regardless of, that fear that I have of change, I do it anyway. And you know what? Just last week, was it last week? I think it was last week or the week before. I just got back from Nashville, and I went out there for some internet marketing training, and they also had, some self-development training as well. But prior to going out there, I didn't want to go out there, and it was because I feared change, because, I didn't know any of the people that I was going to meet out there. I'm not really comfortable around people that I don't know. But, I decided that I was going to do that because it was an opportunity to better myself. So by doing that, I was given the opportunity by the CEO of the company to speak on stage and overcome one of my fears. And you know what? If I wouldn't have gone to that event, if I wouldn't have got on stage, I probably wouldn't be making these videos right now, because, prior to that, I was uncomfortable with speaking to people, and I was uncomfortable with, being in front of an audience and stuff like that. So by me doing that, I was able to overcome one of the fears that I had. And it made me realize that, a lot of things that we fear aren't really, as scary as what we perceive them to be in our mind. See, once you start doubting yourself, you come up with, millions of things to talk yourself out of doing stuff. So what I want to tell you today is, if you're presented with an opportunity to better your life, better your family, better your financial status, take it. Because nothing is worse than not taking the opportunity that's going to better you and regretting it in the future.